Alright, this is part 2 of the cemetery mapping project. Once you get the Garmin unit back to your desktop, you open up a free program called Garmin Basecamp. You can connect your device and download anything that is on the device itself. In my case, it's the waypoints captured from 321 and that overlay map, the satellite view map, are the two things that are on there that show up. Now you can see the waypoints that were collected, but it also captures the route that I took, or the path that I took walking around the cemetery. I really don't want all of that information. I just want the waypoint information. If you look on the waypoint screen here, what you'll get is the notes field, which I filled out with what was notable at that point. Basically, these are headstones that I'm aware of in the cemetery, and then their latitude, longitude, position, and elevation, which I don't really care about, but there's a lot of information in this file. I probably don't need anything other than a way of exporting it. So you can go up to File, Export, hit Export, and then under here you can select what kind of output file format you want. In my case, I wanted to have this comma delimited text. That way I could strip away all the fields out of the file that I don't really want. I just want the ID, the notes, and the lat long values. So in doing that, I generate basically an Excel file that I can then work with for other applications. Alright, so I downloaded that comma delimited file and then stripped out all of the columns and rows that I didn't need. I just wanted to come up with my list of ID, the comment field, which was basically my comments that I put into the Garmin when I was walking around, and the lat long values. So now I can use this to import this into other programs and to see how things look. So let's move it into Google Maps, Google Street Maps first, and see what it looks like there. Alright, this is what it looks like after I imported into Google Maps directly. And obviously with the base map that's on here, it doesn't really add a whole lot of value. The only other choice you have is you can select a satellite view, but it only gives you the latest satellite view. So with the leaf covered trees, it doesn't get me very much information. And then also when I zoom down, the closest I can, this is as close as I can get, and I think I can zoom in farther with the Google Earth program. So now let's import it into there and see what it looks like. Alright, so I've now got the waypoints loaded into Google Earth Pro, which is a free download, and you see it in the base view comes up with the latest imagery from the satellite. Those things you can do under Google Earth, you can zoom in. You can see that things are kind of on an angle perspective. One thing you can do there is you can then go up to the controls here and kind of click it so you have more of a top-down view of things, like you were directly over top. Obviously the satellite isn't going to be directly over top, but now I got a view that's more consistent with what you would look like if you had a top-down map view of things. But this, what you can see is things turned out pretty similar with on Google Streets, but since I still have my overlay here, I can click that in, and that gives us what it would have looked like with the leaves off of the trees. So now what I'm going to do is going to zoom in So when I zoom in, you can see that the markers are not directly on the imagery from what the GPS handheld captured. Now, there could be two problems. One is it's probably within the 6 feet tolerance that you can measure with the handheld device, but also this imagery also has some leeway in it, so you really don't know exactly what the precise value is. But I think for our cemetery work, the 6 foot area is a pretty good result. That's not much different than I was expecting. So now if I put my overlay map back on, kind of zoom out, I can then look around the cemetery at the different things that I've marked. Some of the ones that were most important to me was the center of this island in the roadway here. That looks pretty accurate. Now I stood in front of this well house building. I stood right alongside of it, and you can see number 6 is quite a ways off from I know where I was standing, which was right in front of the door on that side. Number 7, I was right in front of the door on that west side there. So there's definitely some issues with some of the readings. Now maybe you get a little bit of blockage when you're next to a building, and that might show up as some inaccuracies in the marking of that point. I also tried to zoom in and mark some of these larger graves. This is the one I was actually standing next to when point 25 was marked, and that's showing to be a little ways off from there too. Let me just take the overlay off. You can see, yes, even on the regular satellite imagery, which is just kind of out in the open, we didn't get the we weren't able to actually mark that one the way we would have liked. So that's today's work. Mainly was just kind of a test to see how it would turn out. Stay tuned for the next part.